Prologue. When the throne of Olympus begins to crack. 4 ages beyond mortal memory, Olympus has stood unchallenged beneath the thunder
mortal
one
memory.
day.
Olympus has
King
stood
of the sky,
unchallenged.
wielder of lightning, the god who dethroned the Titans and crowned himself ruler of gods and men alike. But power, no matter how absolute,
When the
leaves
dust of
scars.
legend finally
Behind the
settles,
golden
the
halls of
question
Olympus,
remains unresolved.
whispers begin to
Not
rise.
because it lacks an
Not
answer.
from mortals below, but from the gods themselves. Once loyal, once fearful, now restless, Poseidon's oceans rage louder than ever, no longer content to bow beneath the sky. Hera's silence grows colder, heavier, burdened with betrayal unpunished. Athena, born from Zeus's own mind, begins to question whether wisdom can survive under tyranny. Even the younger gods, Apollo, Artemis, Hermes, sense the invisible chains tightening around their divine freedom. Then comes the prophecy, ancient, forbidden, and long buried beneath the ruins of the Titan war. When thunder stands alone, surrounded by those it once ruled, Olympus shall tremble, not from enemy blades, but from broken loyalty. For the first time since Cronus fell, Zeus feels it, not fear but resistance. What if the gods no longer kneel? What if Olympus itself turns against its king? This is not a tale of monsters or titans rising again. This is a story far more dangerous. A story of rebellion among immortals. A war born not from hatred, but from a question no god has ever dared to ask. Is Zeus the protector of Olympus, or the final chain that binds it? Part 1. The Flame of Rebellion. Why the gods turn against Zeus. Revolutions are not born in a single moment. They begin as whispers, soft enough to be ignored, dangerous enough to survive. For centuries, Zeus ruled Olympus not only with thunder and lightning, but with something far more effective, fear disguised as order. To the mortal world, he was the supreme god, the protector of cosmic balance, the final authority between chaos and harmony. To the gods of Olympus, however, Zeus was something far more complex. He was a savior who became a judge, a liberator who grew into a ruler, and, eventually, a king who could no longer tell the difference between leadership and control. The rebellion against Zeus did not begin with swords drawn or storms summoned. It began in silence, within the minds of gods who had grown tired of kneeling. 1. Zeus's greatest crime, absolute power without accountability. Zeus's rise to power was justified. He overthrew Cronus, freed his siblings, and ended the age of the Titans, a reign defined by devouring children and ruling through primal terror. In the eyes of history, Zeus was the hero. But history rarely asks what happens after the hero wins. Once crowned king of Olympus, Zeus declared himself the final authority over gods, mortals, fate, and law. His lightning was no longer merely a weapon. It became a symbol of unquestionable judgment. When disputes arose among the gods, Zeus decided. When mortals prayed, Zeus answered or punished. When prophecies threatened his reign, Zeus altered destinies without hesitation. No council could overrule him. No god could challenge him openly. No law existed above his will. And that was the problem. The gods were immortal, powerful, and ancient, but under Zeus, they were never truly free. Their domains existed by his permission. Their voices mattered only when they aligned with his desires. Over time, Olympus ceased to feel like a pantheon of equals and more like a court orbiting a single, untouchable throne. Power consolidated, trust eroded, and resentment quietly took root. 2. Poseidon, the brother who refused to be second forever. If rebellion had a heartbeat, it echoed first in the depths of the sea. Poseidon, god of oceans, storms, and earthquakes, was Zeus's equal in raw power, yet forever cast in his brother's shadow. The sky ruled above all. The sea, despite its vastness, was considered secondary. Poseidon bowed, for centuries, but every tide remembers its source. Each time Zeus summoned storms without consulting the sea, Poseidon felt the insult deepen. Each time Olympus looked to the sky for authority, Ignoring the oceans that carried trade, life, and destruction, Poseidon's resentment swelled like a rising tide before tsunami. In secret, Poseidon began to ask a forbidden question. If Zeus were truly the strongest, why does he fear sharing power? The ocean god did not seek chaos. He sought parity, a world where Olympus was ruled by balance, not hierarchy. And if balance required the sky to fall, Poseidon was prepared to raise the waves high enough to reach it. 3. Hera. Betrayal turned into cold resolve. Hera's rebellion was not loud. It was not explosive. It was inevitable. Queen of the gods, goddess of marriage, wife to Zeus, and his most enduring victim. Zeus's countless infidelities were not mere personal betrayals. They were public humiliations. Each affair weakened Hera's authority, mocked her domain, and reminded her that even as queen of Olympus, she held no power over her own husband. When Hera punished Zeus's lovers, mortals and goddesses alike condemned her cruelty. Zeus, meanwhile, escaped blame, unchallenged, untouchable. Over time, Hera learned a painful truth. Zeus's power protected him not only from enemies, but from consequences. She did not desire revenge. She desired justice. A concept Zeus preached to mortals but denied to those closest to him. In the rebellion's earliest days, Hera did not rally armies or forge weapons. She did something far more dangerous. 2. Poseidon, the brother who refused to be second forever. If rebellion had a heartbeat, it echoed first in the depths of the sea. Poseidon, god of oceans, storms, and earthquakes, was Zeus's equal in raw power, yet forever cast in his brother's shadow. The sky ruled above all. The sea, despite its vastness, was considered secondary. Poseidon bowed for centuries, but every tide remembers its source. Each time Zeus summoned storms without consulting the sea, Poseidon felt the insult deepen. Each time Olympus looked to the sky for authority, ignoring the oceans that carried trade, life, and destruction, Poseidon's resentment swelled like a rising tide before tsunami. In secret, Poseidon began to ask a forbidden question. If Zeus were truly the strongest, why does he fear sharing power? The ocean god did not seek chaos. He sought parity, a world where Olympus was ruled by balance, not hierarchy. And if balance required the sky to fall, Poseidon was prepared to raise the waves high enough to reach it. 3. Hera. Betrayal turned into cold resolve. Hera's rebellion was not loud. It was not explosive. It was inevitable. Queen of the gods, goddess of marriage, wife to Zeus, and his most enduring victim. Zeus's countless infidelities were not mere personal betrayals. They were public humiliations. Each affair weakened Hera's authority, mocked her domain, and reminded her that even as queen of Olympus, she held no power over her own husband. When Hera punished Zeus's lovers, mortals and goddesses alike condemned her cruelty. Zeus, meanwhile, escaped blame, unchallenged, untouchable. Over time, Hera learned a painful truth. Zeus's power protected him not only from enemies, but from consequences. She did not desire revenge. She desired justice, a concept Zeus preached to mortals but denied to those closest to him. In the rebellion's earliest days, Hera did not rally armies or forge weapons. She did something far more dangerous. She listened, and when the gods spoke of their grievances, Hera remembered every word. 4. Athena, when wisdom begins to question authority. Athena was born from Zeus's mind, literally, goddess of wisdom, strategy, and reason. If any god truly understood Zeus, it was her. For a long time, Athena believed in him. She defended his decisions, justified his punishments, and rationalized his dominance as necessary for order. But wisdom evolves, and wisdom, when honest, eventually confronts uncomfortable truths. Athena began to notice patterns. Zeus punished defiance more harshly than cruelty. He feared prophecy more than injustice. He valued loyalty over truth. Most troubling of all, Zeus increasingly relied on force where persuasion once sufficed. Athena realized that Olympus was no longer governed by wisdom, but by fear of instability. Zeus was no longer protecting balance. He was preserving control. And the most dangerous thought crossed her mind. If Zeus fears losing power more than he values justice, then Olympus is already broken. Athena did not rush to rebellion. She analyzed, calculated, planned, because if the gods were to rise against Zeus, they would need more than strength. They would need strategy. 5. Ares, the god of war who fell caged. Ares thrived on conflict, but even he felt restrained. Zeus used Ares when war was useful, and cast him aside when it became inconvenient. Despite embodying battle itself, Ares was treated as a tool, not a force to be respected. This humiliation festered. Ares began to see Zeus not as a commander, but as a coward hiding behind thunder, afraid of a fair fight. The irony was bitter. The god of war was forbidden from waging the only war that truly mattered, the war for Olympus. When whispers of rebellion reached Ares, he did not hesitate. For him, this was not philosophy. It was destiny. 6. Hades, the silent weight beneath Olympus. Hades did not seek rebellion, but Olympus had a way of pushing even the most reluctant gods toward defiance. Lord of the underworld, Hades ruled the dead with fairness and consistency, qualities Olympus lacked. While Zeus enjoyed worship and praise, Hades bore the burden of souls, grief, and eternal judgment without gratitude. And yet, Zeus interfered. He bent death when it suited him, revived mortals he favored, altered fates to protect his offspring. Each intervention undermined the balance Hades worked tirelessly to maintain. Hades began to wonder, if even death answers to Zeus, what law truly exists? When rebellion stirred, Hades did not lead it, but neither did he stop it. Sometimes silence is consent. 7. The lesser gods, freedom, finally questioned. Apollo feared prophecy being censored. Artemis despised Zeus's disregard for sacred vows. Hermes grew weary of delivering commands he did not believe in. Hephaestus remembered every rejection, every exile, every time Zeus chose convenience over compassion. Together, they realized something terrifying. They were immortal, but not autonomous. Their rebellion was not about power. It was about choice. 8. The forbidden prophecy, when fear replaces faith. Deep beneath Olympus lay a prophecy erased from history, a relic from the Titanomachy, sealed by Zeus himself. It spoke not of titans or monsters, but of gods. When the ruler of thunder stands above all law, the law shall rise against him. Zeus dismissed it as heresy. The gods did not. 9. The moment rebellion became inevitable. The rebellion did not begin when weapons were raised. It began when the gods realized Zeus no longer trusted them. From that moment on, Olympus was already at war. Zeus did not fall because he was weak. He was challenged because he was alone. The flame of rebellion was not fueled by hatred, but by the realization that Olympus could no longer survive under a single will. Part 2. The War of the Gods. When Olympus turns against itself. Wars between gods are never sudden. They are preceded by hesitation, by the terrible understanding that once the first blow is struck, nothing sacred remains untouched. Olympus had known conflict before. Titans had fallen. Giants had been crushed. Monsters had been erased from memory. But those wars were simple. They were fought against enemies who stood outside the divine order. This war was different. This war was fought within the family. 1. The night before the storm. On the final night, before rebellion became reality, Olympus was unervingly silent. No thunder rolled across the sky. No winds stirred the clouds. Even the sacred fires burned lower than usual. Zeus sensed it. For the first time since the Titan War, the king of Olympus felt the unsettling absence of fear. The god still obeyed, but obedience without devotion is a fragile thing. His lightning crackled faintly in his grasp, restless, as though it too sensed that the storm ahead would not be like the others. Across Olympus, alliances formed not through proclamations, but through glances, unspoken agreements, and shared understanding. Athena moved quietly, speaking to no one openly, yet guiding everyone. Hera watched from her throne, calm and unreadable. Poseidon stood at the edge of the heavens, staring down at the sea, waiting. And far below, in the depths of the underworld, Hades unlocked gates that had not opened since the dawn of the gods. 2. The first strike, when the sea reaches the sky. The war began not with lightning, but with water. Without warning, the ocean surged upward, defying gravity itself. Towers of water pierced the clouds, crashing against the floating mountains of Olympus. Entire sections of the celestial realm shattered as salt and storm collided with marble and gold. Poseidon had made his decision. His trident struck the air, and the sea answered like an army long restrained. Thunder clouds darkened, not summoned by Zeus, but choked by moisture and wrath. Zeus rose instantly, lightning blazing across the sky. "Brother," he thundered, "stand down." Poseidon did not answer, because words had failed centuries ago. 3. Zeus unleashed. The king reveals his true power. Zeus descended like judgment incarnate. Lightning fell not in single strikes, but in endless barges, tearing apart the rising oceans and vaporizing entire waves mid-air. The sky burned white. The heavens screamed. For a moment, it seemed the rebellion would end before it truly began. This was Zeus at full strength, unchained, unrestrained, no longer pretending to be merciful. Each bolt carried the force that once shattered titans and sealed monsters beyond time. Lesser gods retreated. Even Poseidon staggered as thunder met tide. But Zeus failed to notice something crucial. He was fighting alone. 4. Athena's gambit, strategy over strength. As Zeus focused on raw destruction, Athena made her move. The goddess of wisdom did not attack Zeus directly. Instead, she dismantled his advantages. Sacred winds were redirected. Divine sight was clouded. Olympus itself began to shift, its ancient structures responding not to Zeus's will, but to Athena's commands. For the first time, Zeus found his throne fighting against him. Athena had prepared for this moment for centuries, studying every battle Zeus had ever won. She knew his patterns, his instincts, his blind spots. Most of all, she understood his greatest weakness. Zeus believed power alone decided wars. Athena knew better. 5. Hera's judgment, when the queen chooses a side. Hera did not raise a weapon. She raised her voice. Her command echoed through Olympus, not as an order, but as a declaration. Divine bonds shifted. Alliances once held together by Zeus's authority began to unravel. Goddesses who had long remained neutral stepped forward. Sacred oaths broke. Old loyalties dissolved. Hera had waited centuries for this moment. Not to destroy Zeus, but to expose him. "Look at him," she proclaimed. "A king who fears equals. A ruler who confuses obedience with love." Her words struck deeper than any blade. Even Zeus hesitated. And in divine war, hesitation is fatal. 6. Ares unbound. War without permission. When Ares entered the battlefield, Olympus burned. The god of war had been unleashed at last, and he reveled in the chaos. Divine blood stained the heavens as Ares clashed with gods and guardians alike. He did not fight for justice or balance. He fought because this was the war he had been denied all his existence. Zeus attempted to command him. Ares laughed. "No more orders," he roared, striking down Zeus's champions. "No more chains." For the first time, Zeus saw what he had created and what he had suppressed. 7. Hephaestus and the chains of thunder. Deep within the forges of Olympus, Hephaestus revealed his betrayal. Forged in secrecy were chains not meant for titans, but for Zeus himself. Crafted from celestial metals, tempered in divine fire, inscribed with runes older than Olympus. Chains designed to bind lightning. When Zeus felt his power falter, even for a moment, he knew this rebellion had been planned. 8. The underworld rises. Hades breaks his silence. Then the ground cracked. From beneath Olympus, shadows poured forth. Gates long sealed open wide. The dead did not rise, but their presence was felt. The weight of mortality pressed upon the battlefield, draining strength and resolve. Hades emerged, not as a conqueror, but as a judge. "I warned you," he said calmly to Zeus. "There are laws even kings must obey." Zeus answered with lightning. Hades answered with inevitability. 9. The gods divide. Olympus in civil war. Not all gods chose rebellion. Some remained loyal. Others hesitated. Some switched sides mid-battle. Olympus fractured. Brother fought brother. Student faced teacher. Children turned against their father. The realm itself began to collapse under the strain of divine conflict. Mountains shattered. Time warped. Mortal realms trembled as gods clashed above them. This was no longer a battle for power. This was a reckoning. 10. Zeus cornered when the kings stand alone. As the battle raged, Zeus found himself surrounded, not by enemies, but by former allies. Lightning dimmed. The sky itself seemed uncertain whom it served. For the first time since his rise, Zeus understood the cost of ruling through fear. Power had kept him king, but power had also left him alone. Closing reflection of Part 2. The War of the Gods did not decide a victor. It decided a truth. Olympus could survive titans. It could survive monsters, but might not survive itself. As the battlefield fell silent and the gods stood among ruins of their own making, one question echoed through the heavens. If Zeus falls, what rises in his place? And far above the shattered throne, the storm gathered, not to destroy, but to judge what the gods would become next. Part 3. The hypothetical end. Does Zeus fall? Or does Olympus fall with him? Every war ends, but not every ending brings peace. When the thunder finally faded and the battlefield of Olympus lay fractured beneath the ash of divine conflict, the gods stood still, uncertain, wounded, and forever changed. The war against Zeus had not ended with a decisive victory. There was no final blow that shattered the sky, no triumphant roar to announce a new age. Instead, there was silence, and silence, among immortals, is often more terrifying than destruction. 1. The moment Zeus falls, but not completely. Zeus did not die. The king of Olympus could not be slain so easily. Even bound by Hephaestus's chains, even weakened by Athena's strategies and Hades' relentless pressure, Zeus remained what he had always been, a force of nature. But for the first time in existence, Zeus was no longer untouchable. His lightning flickered. The sky hesitated. The throne stood cracked, empty, uncertain. To the gods watching, this moment felt like victory. The tyrant had been restrained. The storm had been silenced. Yet something felt wrong. Zeus, bound and defeated, did not beg. He did not curse. He did not threaten. He simply looked upon Olympus and smiled faintly, not with arrogance, with understanding. 2. The illusion of triumph. The gods gathered, victorious but uneasy. Poseidon lowered his trident, his rage spent. Athena assessed the damage with cold precision. Hera stood tall, her long-awaited reckoning finally realized. Ares paced restlessly, already dissatisfied with peace. Hades remained apart, his gaze fixed not on Zeus, but on the fractures spreading across reality itself. They had won the war, but none of them felt like rulers. Without Zeus's authority, Olympus felt hollow. The divine mechanisms that once maintained balance, storms, seasons, fate, death, began to drift out of alignment. The sky no longer answered commands instantly. The seas grew unpredictable. Mortal prayers went unanswered or were answered twice over, creating chaos below. The gods began to realize a terrifying truth. Zeus had not merely ruled Olympus. He had held it together. 3. Power divided is not power shared. The first council of gods without Zeus was called immediately. Athena proposed structure. Poseidon demanded equal authority. Hera argued for justice and accountability. Ares demanded dominance through strength. Apollo sought clarity of prophecy. Artemis demanded freedom from divine politics. Hermes warned of mortal panic. Hades reminded them that death does not wait for debate. No agreement was reached. Without a central authority, the gods reverted not to harmony, but to rivalry. Old grudges resurfaced. New ambitions ignited. Each god believed they alone knew what Olympus needed. The rebellion had overthrown a king, but it had not created a system. 4. Zeus's warning. Bound in silence, Zeus finally spoke. "You feared my power," he said calmly, "but you never understood it." The gods turned toward him, not with reverence, but with suspicion. "I was not king because I was strongest," Zeus continued. "I was king because I was willing to carry the weight you now refuse to share." Athena hesitated. Zeus's voice echoed across Olympus, not as thunder, but as truth. "Balance is not mercy, it is burden. Every storm you curse, every fate you resent, every punishment you condemn, I chose them so you would not have to." Poseidon clenched his fist. Hera said nothing. Ares scoffed, but listened. "You wanted freedom," Zeus concluded. "Now prove you deserve it." 5. Olympus begins to collapse. The warning came too late. Without unified command, Olympus destabilized rapidly. The skies fractured, no longer governed by a single will. Temporal rifts opened where prophecy clashed with free choice. The boundary between life and death weakened as mortal souls slipped through unnoticed. The mortal world suffered first. Earthquakes ravaged cities. Storms arrived without warning. Crops failed as seasons lost rhythm. Mortals prayed harder than ever, but the gods were too divided to answer consistently. Faith eroded, and without faith, gods weaken. 6. The gods turn on each other. The second war began quietly, not with thunder or oceans, but with blame. Poseidon accused Athena of manipulation. Athena accused Hera of emotional governance. Hera accused Zeus of poisoning Olympus beyond repair. Ares challenged everyone. Apollo foresaw ruin, but was ignored. Artemis withdrew entirely, refusing to participate. Olympus became what Zeus had always feared it would become without him, a battlefield of egos. 7. Hades' judgment, the final voice of reason. At last, Hades spoke, not as a participant, but as a witness. "You sought to end tyranny," he said. "Instead, you have created entropy." The gods turned toward him. Zeus was flawed. Hades continued. Cruel at times, arrogant often, but he was consistent. And consistency is the foundation of order. Athena lowered her gaze. "You believe power was the problem," Hades concluded. "But power was the solution you resented carrying." 8. The choice, restore the king or embrace ruin. Olympus stood at a crossroads. They could destroy Zeus entirely, ending his reign forever, embracing an age of divine democracy or endless war. Or they could restore him, not as an absolute monarch, but as a necessary anchor. Neither choice promised peace, but one promised survival. 9. Zeus uncrowned. In the end, compromise, bitter and imperfect, was reached. Zeus would be freed, but never again unquestioned. Athena would guide strategy and law. Hera would oversee justice and divine bonds. Poseidon would command the natural forces equally. Hades would guard the boundary of death without interference. Zeus would remain king, but bound by counsel, law, and consequence. The storm would still rule the sky, but it would no longer rule alone. 10. The aftermath. Olympus forever changed. Olympus survived, but it would never return to what it once was. The gods had seen Zeus fall and could never forget it. Zeus had seen Olympus without him and would never fully trust it again. Balance was restored, but fragile. And somewhere in the heavens, the prophecy echoed anew. When thunder is challenged, the gods must choose order through fear or chaos through freedom. Final reflection, the truth behind the question. So did Zeus lose? Yes and no. He lost his absolute authority, but Olympus lost its illusions. The rebellion proved that even gods cannot escape the consequences of power, whether wielded alone or shared imperfectly. In the end, Zeus was not overthrown because he was weak. He was challenged because no ruler, divine or mortal, can stand forever without being questioned. And Olympus learned the hardest lesson of all. Sometimes, the fall of a king is not the end of tyranny, but the beginning of responsibility. Epilogue: Zeus may fall, but Olympus can never escape his shadow. Zeus can be challenged. Zeus can be restrained. Zeus can even fall from the throne he once ruled without question. But Olympus will never truly escape him. For Zeus was never just a king of thunder or a wielder of lightning. He was the embodiment of a system, an idea forged in chaos and hardened through war. Long before Olympus gleamed with marble and gold, Zeus carried the burden of holding a broken cosmos together. Every storm he unleashed, every judgment he passed, left scars not only on others, but on himself. The gods may dismantle his authority, divide his power, and rewrite the laws of Olympus. Yet every decision they make now echoes with the same question Zeus once faced alone: who will bear the weight of order? Without Zeus, Olympus risks becoming a battlefield of ambition. With him, it risks returning to fear. This is the paradox the gods cannot escape. Zeus's shadow lingers not because he was flawless, but because he was necessary. In the end, the story of Zeus is not a tale of victory or defeat. It is a warning written in thunder. Power unchallenged becomes tyranny, but power without responsibility becomes ruin. And so Olympus endures, not free of Zeus, but wiser because of him. For as long as storms rage above and mortals look to the sky in awe or fear, one truth remains unbroken. A king may fall, but the shadow of his rule shapes the world long after the throne stands empty. Thunder tears across the sky of Olympus, and in its blinding light stands Zeus, ruler of the gods, master of lightning, an eternal symbol of divine justice. To mortals, he is remembered as the great hero who shattered the tyranny of the Titans and brought order to a broken cosmos. His name is spoken with awe, his image carved into stone, his victories sung in the voices of poets. But history, especially the kind written by the victorious, has a dangerous habit of hiding its darkest truths. What if Zeus was not only a liberator, but also a conqueror? Before Olympus rose, the universe was ruled by Cronus and the Titans, brutal, paranoid, and cruel. They devoured their own children, enslaved the forces of nature, and ruled through fear. When Zeus rebelled, it was seen as an act of cosmic salvation. The chains were broken. The Titans were defeated. A new age was born. Yet behind every revolution lies a question that no legend dares to ask. What was the real price of that victory? Zeus did not take power through negotiation or justice. He took it through war, thunder, and annihilation. The Titans were not judged, they were erased. Their voices were buried beneath Tartarus, and their story was silenced forever. And so, the only version of history that survived was Zeus's. As the skies cleared and Olympus shone in golden glory, no one dared to wonder whether the new king of the gods was truly different from the tyrant he overthrew, or merely a stronger version of the same darkness. Because when absolute power changes hands, the world may be saved, but the truth is often lost. Part 1: Zeus, the hero who overthrew the tyranny of the Titans. Before Zeus ever ruled the skies, before Olympus glittered with marble and immortal fire, the universe was a place ruled not by justice, but by fear. The Titans were the first great gods, colossal beings born from Gaia, the earth, and Uranus, the endless sky. Among them, Cronus rose to supreme power after overthrowing his own father in a brutal act of cosmic betrayal. He was not crowned by law, nor chosen by fate. He seized the throne with blood-soaked hands, slicing Uranus apart and casting his broken body into the abyss. From that moment on, the universe learned a terrible truth. Power belonged to whoever was willing to take it. Cronus ruled from a throne of terror. The stars moved at his command, the oceans trembled beneath his will, and even the other Titans feared his gaze. Yet despite his immense strength, Cronus was haunted by a prophecy, one whispered by Gaia herself. One of your children will destroy you, as you destroyed your father. Fear became his shadow, paranoia his closest companion. And so Cronus did the unthinkable. Each time his wife Rhea gave birth, he swallowed the newborn whole: Hestia, Demeter, Hera, Hades, and Poseidon, locking them alive inside his endless stomach, entombed in darkness before they could ever see the world. To Cronus, it was not cruelty. It was survival. But fate does not bend forever. When Rhea became pregnant once more, something within her broke. The grief, the rage, the unbearable sorrow of losing yet another child hardened into rebellion. With Gaia's guidance, she hid the infant Zeus away on the island of Crete, while giving Cronus a stone wrapped in cloth to swallow in his place. Cronus, blind with fear and arrogance, devoured it without question. And so Zeus lived, hidden in a sacred cave, nursed by the divine goat Amalthea, guarded by warrior spirits who clashed their shields to hide his cries. Zeus grew not just in strength, but in awareness. He learned of his siblings imprisoned inside Cronus. He learned of the tyranny of the Titans. And slowly, within him, something far greater than lightning began to form. A purpose. When Zeus came of age, he did not rush into war. He was not yet powerful enough to challenge the Titans directly. Instead, he used cunning, disguise, patience. Disguised as a servant, Zeus infiltrated Cronus's court. There, he mixed a powerful potion into his father's drink, one that forced Cronus to vomit up what he had swallowed. One by one, Zeus's siblings were released, reborn into the light after years of imprisonment. Hestia, Demeter, Hera, Hades, Poseidon. Together, they stood before the Titan king, no longer helpless children, but gods ready to fight. The war that followed would shake the foundations of existence. The Titanomachy, the War of the Gods, lasted 10 years. 10 years of storms, earthquakes, and celestial bloodshed. Olympus burned. The oceans boiled. Mountains were torn from the earth and hurled like weapons. The Titans were ancient, vast, and brutal. But Zeus had something they did not: allies. He descended into Tartarus and freed the Cyclopes, one-eyed giants imprisoned by the Titans. In gratitude, they forged for Zeus the greatest weapon ever known, the thunderbolt, a fragment of the raw power of creation itself, shaped into a weapon. To Poseidon, they gave the trident, ruler of the seas. To Hades, the helm of darkness, which rendered him invisible. For the first time, the Titans faced something truly terrifying: a united front. Zeus led the charge, hurling lightning across the battlefield. Each bolt tore through Titan flesh, splitting mountains, igniting the sky. The very laws of nature bent beneath his power. But Zeus was not just a warrior. He was a symbol. To the enslaved forces of the universe, he was rebellion. To the oppressed, he was hope. To the Titans, he was judgment. One by one, the Titans fell. Cronus, at last, stood face to face with the sun he had tried to erase. Lightning clashed against ancient scythes, sky against time, future against past. And when Cronus finally collapsed, the age of Titans ended. The defeated were cast into Tartarus, sealed behind unbreakable gates, guarded by the monstrous Cenomanes. The old rulers of the cosmos were buried alive beneath the world they once controlled, and Zeus ascended the throne of the universe. To many, this was the dawn of justice. The chains had been broken. The devourer of children had fallen. The sky was free. Zeus was hailed as the savior of the gods. And for a time, he was. But even in this moment of triumph, a shadow lingered. Because Zeus had done what all rulers before him had done. He had taken power through war, and the thunder that crowned him king was forged in blood. Part 2. Zeus, the new tyrant behind the throne of thunder. When the Titans fell and Tartarus sealed shut, the universe exhaled for the first time in an age. Mountains stopped burning. The oceans calmed. The sky cleared. To the gods of Olympus and the fragile world of mortals below, it appeared that justice had finally won. Zeus stood at the peak of Mount Olympus, thunder resting in his hand like a divine scepter. He was young, radiant, victorious. Poets would one day sing of him as the great liberator, the savior of the cosmos, the king who ended tyranny. But power does not disappear when a tyrant falls. It merely changes hands. At first, Zeus ruled as he had promised. The heavens were ordered, the seas given to Poseidon, the underworld to Hades, the harvest to Demeter. Even Hera, though burdened by her future, was crowned queen of Olympus. The world was divided, balanced, structured. Yet beneath this apparent harmony, something darker was growing. Zeus had not only defeated the Titans, he had learned from them. The first sign was Tartarus. The Titans had not been tried. They had not been judged. They had not been forgiven. They had been erased, locked away forever in eternal torment, stripped of voice, history, and memory. Their side of the story would never be heard. To Zeus, this was justice. To the universe, it was silence. And silence is the first weapon of every tyrant. Soon after, the gods themselves began to feel the weight of Zeus's rule. He did not debate. He commanded. He did not seek consensus. He declared law. Anyone who questioned him was reminded, subtly or violently, of the thunderbolt that never left his hand. Even Poseidon, master of the seas, learned to lower his eyes in Zeus's presence. Even Hades, ruler of the dead, obeyed without argument. Because Zeus was not simply king. He was unstoppable. But Zeus's greatest fear was not rebellion from Olympus. It was prophecy. Like Cronus before him, Zeus was haunted by whispers of fate. Oracles spoke of a child who would one day overthrow him. The echoes of Gaia's ancient warnings still lingered in the bones of the world. And fear, once again, was born. So Zeus did what all terrified rulers do. He tried to control destiny. When Metis, the goddess of wisdom, became pregnant with Zeus's child, prophecy foretold that her son would surpass his father. Zeus did not hesitate. He swallowed her whole, not out of hunger, but out of terror. The universe shuddered. A god consuming a goddess. A king devouring the future. From inside Zeus's body, Metis lived on, and from her, Athena would one day be born, tearing her way out of Zeus's skull in a burst of divine agony. The parallels to Cronus were undeniable, and yet Zeus never saw it. Zeus also ruled mortals, not as a distant observer, but as a manipulator. He descended to earth in countless disguises: bulls, swans, storms, kings, and shadows. He seduced, deceived, and conquered human women, leaving behind children who would become heroes and tragedies. Every affair created chaos. Every divine romance ended in suffering. For the women, for their families, for the children caught between godhood and humanity. And when mortals suffered, Zeus rarely intervened. Because suffering was not his concern. Control was. Perhaps the clearest proof of Zeus's tyranny was Prometheus, the Titan who had sided with Zeus during the war. The Titan who had helped humanity. The Titan who stole fire, not for power, but for survival. Zeus could not tolerate disobedience. He chained Prometheus to a rock and condemned him to eternal torture. Every day, an eagle would devour his liver. Every night, it would grow back. Forever. All because Prometheus dared to give humans knowledge Zeus wanted to keep. This was not justice. This was fear wearing the mask of law. Slowly, the gods realized the truth. Zeus had not ended tyranny. He had perfected it. Unlike Cronus, who ruled openly through terror, Zeus ruled through divine authority. His cruelty was hidden behind the language of order. His violence was justified as necessity. His paranoia disguised as wisdom. Olympus became a golden cage. Beautiful, powerful, and inescapable. The thunder that once symbolized freedom had become the sound of obedience. And the god who once promised never to become like Cronus had become something far more dangerous. Because Zeus did not believe himself to be a tyrant. He believed himself to be right. Part 3. Zeus, God, monster, or something in between. By the time Olympus reached the height of its glory, the universe no longer remembered the sound of chains breaking. It remembered only thunder. Zeus sat upon a throne carved from cloud and starlight, crowned by lightning, feared by gods and mortals alike. To the world, he was the eternal king, the lawgiver, the skyfather, the guardian of cosmic order. Temples rose in his name. Sacrifices burned on 1,000 altars. His image was carved into mountains and coins and stories. And yet beneath this divine worship lay a deeper, darker truth. Zeus was no longer just a god. He was a system of fear, desire, punishment, and power, one that shaped every corner of existence. To ask whether Zeus was a god or a monster is to misunderstand him. He was something far more dangerous. He was both. The ancient myths often portray Zeus as the protector of justice, the one who punished oath breakers, defended hospitality, and upheld cosmic law. But the same God who punished injustice also committed it. The same thunder that struck down criminals also silenced the innocent. And so the question arises, was Zeus truly defending order, or merely defending his throne? To answer this, we must look not at his enemies, but at those closest to him. Hera, queen of Olympus, is often remembered as jealous and cruel. But what is jealousy when it is born from endless betrayal? Zeus humiliated her again and again, flaunting his affairs, turning mortal women into divine tragedies. Yet Hera, bound by divine law and cosmic image, could not leave him. She ruled beside him, but never as his equal. This was Zeus's pattern. Everyone was granted power, but no one was allowed independence. Poseidon ruled the seas, but only so long as he bowed to Olympus. Hades ruled the underworld, but was exiled to the shadows. Athena, born of Zeus's mind, was wise, but never free. Even his children were weapons. Heroes like Heracles were not just champions, they were tools of Zeus's will, sent to reshape the world according to divine preference. And what of mortals? To humans, Zeus was a paradox. He was the god who protected guests, yet violated women in their own homes. He was the god of justice, yet ruled through favoritism. He was the sky father, yet never acted like a father. Entire cities were destroyed by Zeus's storms not for crimes, but for displeasing him. In the myth of Troy, Zeus watched as thousands died, not out of necessity, but because fate, a fate he had helped design, demanded it. The suffering of mortals was entertainment. The will of Zeus was law. But the most chilling truth of all was this. Zeus believed he was good. Unlike Cronus, who ruled through naked fear, Zeus ruled through moral certainty. He saw himself as the architect of balance, the guardian of cosmic stability. In his mind, every punishment was justified, every cruelty necessary. This is what made him terrifying. A tyrant who knows he is cruel can be challenged. A tyrant who believes he is righteous cannot. And yet, Zeus was not purely evil. He did prevent chaos. He did stop monsters. He did protect the fragile structure of the universe from collapsing into primal darkness. Without him, reality might have fallen back into the endless brutality of the Titans. Zeus was not wrong when he said the world needed order. He was wrong in believing that only he could provide it. In the deepest, most secret corners of Olympus, there are whispers, old prophecies, forgotten warnings, echoes of what Gaia once said. No king lasts forever, not even one made of thunder. Zeus himself knew this. That was why he feared his children. That was why he crushed rebellion. That was why he controlled fate. Because somewhere deep inside the god of the sky lived a terrified child. The same child who had hidden in a cave, waiting for Cronus to be defeated. The cycle had never ended. It had only changed its face. So what was Zeus? A god? Yes. A monster? Also yes. But more than anything, Zeus was a mirror. A reflection of power itself. How it begins with noble purpose, how it justifies cruelty, and how it ultimately devours those who wield it. He was the savior who became the storm, the liberator who became the law, the rebel who became the throne. And perhaps that is the most tragic truth of all. Zeus did not fail because he was evil. He failed because he was human, with the power of a god. Conclusion. Zeus stands at the center of myth not because he was the strongest, but because he was the one who survived long enough to define the story. He ended the age of the Titans and brought order to a shattered cosmos. Yet in doing so, he built a new world upon the same foundation of fear, force, and absolute power. To some, he will always be the hero who saved the universe from ancient darkness. To others, he is merely the darkness wearing a brighter crown. What makes Zeus unforgettable is not his lightning or his throne, but his contradiction. He was capable of justice, yet addicted to control. He defended order, yet constantly violated it when it suited his desires. He punished tyranny, yet never truly escaped becoming a tyrant himself. In Zeus, we see a truth that extends far beyond mythology, that power does not corrupt only the wicked. It transforms even those who begin with noble intentions. And so Zeus remains suspended between god and monster, neither fully one nor the other. His story is not simply about divine wars and thunderbolts, but about the fragile boundary between leadership and domination. In the end, Zeus did not prove that the cycle of tyranny could be broken. He proved how difficult it is to escape it, even for a god.